Yeah, here, we're fine. Hello, everyone. Welcome again to the Garage.
It's a music podcast.
For music lovers.
For music lovers. Mike here with Luke and Jeff. And today we have a very special guest, an old childhood friend of mine, Mr. Greg Wetzel. Welcome to the podcast.
I like that we clapped this time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's much better. I'm glad we did
We
it.
had a
Makes
rough
me feel
take.
fancy.
Greg's like one of our most ardent supporters and listeners.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
happy
We're
to
glad
have you
to
on.
finally have him on.
Yeah, man. It's been a long time coming. And also the topic, which we had planned to do at some point.
This
Or did we talk-
episode has been 13 years in the making.
13 years in the making. The podcast has only existed for 2 of those 13 years, but it's been yeah. But no, for real, because I mean, I have just to speak to Greg, like I have memories of like coming over to your house and you playing like watching like a live Slipknot DVD or something
God.
like that over at your house, and yeah, like I remember just being like, oh my god, this is fucking, because they were like came out with like a goat head and shit. I was like, this is the devil incarnate. What
Yeah,
are
it
you
was
showing me?
The Disaster Pieces DVD.
Oh my goodness, my doughy-eyed Christian eyes were not ready to see this like fucking thing, but
Greg also scared the shit out of me at a younger age when I went to the VFW in Jewett City, and it was that was the first live musical thing I ever saw, like heavy rock band.
Oh, wow.
That was like the first time I ever saw
Last
a
the
band
fall?
play. Yeah,
yeah, because Jade was
Scared the
dating
crap out of
Reed
me.
at the time,
But it was, like,
and Reed
amazing.
Played guitar, yeah,
Yep.
it was like changed the. I was like, oh, this is exciting. This
Yeah.
is so exciting.
yeah.
Everyone was like, are they fighting?
I had that CD for the
whole time.
longest time.
Oh yeah.
I had that CD for
that's
the
fun.
longest. It's somewhere in the depths of the mountains of things that I have in my house. I swear, I still have that Last
The,
of Fall
the
CD.
Last of Fall album.
Yeah, man.
Oh man, that'd be a classic to bring out.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, got lots of memories with you as a kid.
Yeah.
Specifically, Greek Easter.
Yeah,
Those were
Greek
always
Easter.
good times.
Coming up
Greek,
pretty soon.
Yeah, Greek
a week
Easter.
after Catholic
Mike
Easter.
lived a couple houses down from me, and
Yeah.
yeah, that was probably the most metal thing I've ever experienced. To be honest.
Just a goat on a spit.
I left your house to go home for a few minutes, and when I came back, the sheep that I was playing with were hanging in the garage with no skin.
Yeah, I know. I used to try
And-
and feed them and befriend them, and then my grandfather would literally slice their throats in front of me when I was 6 years old.
And then eat their eye.
He's like, "This is what real life is like." I'm like, "This is way too fucking real, bro. Like, what are you doing?"
Eating their eyes.
And then you eat their eyes. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was very metal.
Yeah, because if you eat the eyes, it lets you can see in the dark.
It's a very Tool
As
thing,
per
to be honest.
the old Grecian folklores and things, it was like, yeah, if you eat the
Yeah, so
no,
we,
it's just my
we
crazy
go back. We go
my
back.
crazy grandfather. But yeah, man, yeah, and a lot of musical memories too. Like, so I'm excited to get into it. This is, like I said,
It's gonna be the Tool episode.
the Tool episode. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're gonna go down the rabbit hole with Tool.
We're going to pry open Luke's third eye.
That's
Yeah.
right. This is a fun episode format, as in
You fucker!
With a psychedelic crowbar.
this is one of those fun episodes where, like, I've never listened to Tool ever. I mean, the single off the third
Like
record.
Schism, you know.
That's the
Sober.
only song I've ever heard.
Sober's another possible
Sober,
one.
I did recognize that one.
So
as
how'd
well.
you know you didn't
popular.
like them?
Good question.
Oh, it's not that. It's
I
not
know
that,
why.
It's not that Luke knows that he likes them or doesn't like them. It's a matter of taste.
Thank you.
Luke saw a 13-minute song and he said, I like albums that are 13 minutes long.
Yeah.
Can why I never went after Tool is weirdly it's the artwork. Like I always felt like the artwork was something I was like, that's not really my deal, and I just knew that like instantly. But that's like what kept me away from it for so long was like the imagery of
the
it.
prism print.
Yeah, and like that, and then at some point in my head, it almost turned into like a Grateful Dead thing, where it was like the fans are so ardently like supportive, and
They're like Between the Buried and Me fans, man. They're
yeah,
hardcore.
and then even at that, like critically, Tool is like also a critically acclaimed band in much of the way that like Radiohead is, and like I'm not a big Radiohead guy either, and I was almost like. Yeah, I'm good. Like I'm good, but
like by the time you heard of them, people had heard of them, so you no longer cared.
yeah, I was like, they have their thing. It's fine.
Yeah.
That's cool. Have fun. You know what I mean? And then the third being that I don't like heavy prog metal is like just on my like lower end of like things I've ever listened to. But I listened to all of these Tool records, and I'm excited to talk about them.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we start there? So that's Luke's intro to the band. Mike, what's your like earliest memories of Tool?
Really, just I think when Lateralis came out, the song Schism. Like my dad was like really, really into. He's like, "Yo, check this band Tool out," you know.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the beginning of it for me. But then it just evolved anyway, naturally, because like, just my musical taste, the narrative of it, the way it went, and everything, like very. Unlike Luke, very heavy into the idea of progressive metal. You know, like that's something that interests me. So naturally, Tool's in the conversation. But it's just done. What they do musically is just so clever, and like people sleep on like what they're actually doing. Like you don't even know what they're doing, but what they're doing is something that's pretty. You know, just.
Can I say before we move on, there were moments where I was listening to it and I was like, "This is really good." But I like wasn't enjoying it like enough as I felt I should, and I was like, I wanted to get like I was like, there's something I'm not getting. There's an element of this I don't understand, and like that's what. So continue.
Yeah, it's just experimentations.
I
like
definitely
that.
got that vibe.
We'll get into it when we talk about the music, but these dudes are like rhythmic. I mean, rhythmically just on a different level. They like subdivide and do all kinds of like interesting time signature choices and stuff like that. That like. You know, like it's a cool song, but like if you know what they're doing, you're like, whoa,
Yeah.
these dudes are, you know, yeah. So anyway,
How about you, Greg? What because you are the oldest of us by a couple years.
Probably a substantial amount.
So this was more in like in your youth. This band was coming up.
Yeah, I discovered Tool kind of really in my finding my my real musical taste kind of thing, where I branched off from what my parents were listening to and more into what I was listening to. But Tool, when I first discovered them, scared the hell out of me.
Yeah.
It was an intimidating thing to jump into because I was coming, like my stepping stone into metal was like Korn and like Cold Chamber and stuff like that. So when I found Tool, my cousin actually introduced me to Tool, and it was Anima that was the first album that I listened to, and that album's got some scary stuff in it. It's
Yeah.
oh yeah,
you know,
dude.
it's
It's
the
haunting,
imagery,
man.
yeah. And when you're young and you don't really know like the satire contained within,
Sure. Yeah.
it was nightmare inducing a lot of times. And but it really, at the time, and honestly still now, there was nothing that came out that sounded like Tool and that was doing what they were doing and doing it in such a quality way. So it kind of, I always gravitated to it when I was in those moments where I don't know, where I just didn't want to really experience reality at the moment.
Oh yeah.
Just kind of pulled me into a different place.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like, I would say I first was exposed to them from like clips on Beavis and Butthead on MTV, where they would like play the sober video, the claymation, and but
Yeah, that claymation.
I think kind of a mix of both Mike and Greg's experiences, because I remember when Lateralis came out and Schism was on. I was listening to like modern rock radio at the time. I was like 12, 13. Schism was on the radio. Parabola was on the radio, and then I like got into them when I was in college, and then like started to like work backwards and listen to the Anima and Undertow, and yeah, I think exactly what you said. The nightmare inducing. It's like a relentless. It's very intense music. Like even the moments of like quiet are just like this kind of like, oh,
ominous.
what's coming?
Like,
yeah. Yeah, but they were one of those big bands because starting in the early 90s, and they made their most recent album well, now 2.5, 3 years ago. They've been one of the biggest bands of my lifetime. Like, they're always in my top 10 if I think about like my top 10 favorite bands, and some days they crack the top 5. But yeah, that music, it's it's like the heaviest music can get without like full screaming and like death metal type stuff, because it's still like melodic, but it's just like thunderous like heaviness.
It's like searing hot.
Something I've always respected about Tool is they don't ever really feel the need to fill every moment with all of the sound that they can. They can really just like slow burn into stuff, and they don't care if it takes 13 minutes to start a song. They don't care if it's a whole song that is just the intro to the next song,
Right.
like with Parable and Parabola. It's something I've always respected, especially about Maynard, because most vocalists feel the need to really just fill every space they can, and he just doesn't really seem to care about that.
Yeah.
So-
He serves the songs,
Yeah. And so like for the uninitiated, Tool is a band that's based in Los Angeles, consisting of vocalist Maynard James Keegan, my bad. Keenan, my bad. Danny Carey on drums, Justin Chancellor currently on bass, and Adam Jones on guitar. Their original bassist was Paul D'Amour, who was in the band from its inception until 1995, which was the Undertow like tour he left during that period. And it's just 4 like ultra proficient master musicians who they make albums like it was every 2 years, and then it was like 5-year gaps between a couple, and then a 13-year gap.
Yeah.
So who knows? They may. I mean, I hope they do, but they may never make another album.
They will.
think
Maynard just recently said that they'll keep making music until one of them dies.
Good.
So
Yeah, I think I saw. I didn't watch the video itself, but I saw a video that was labeled. I forget which member it was, but confirming that they're writing. Whether that yields to an actual album, who knows? But you know, so we're gonna cover 5.
Yeah, do you want to
Tonight.
do the intro? Their first thing was the Opiate EP.
Right.
So we can do a quick little blip on that. Came out in 1992. I believe it's 5 tracks, 6 tracks maybe. I think 5. 2 of the cuts are live. What are your thoughts on the Opiate EP?
well, it's not Tool to me.
Right.
It's way more. I think Opiate, and just to touch on that, Opiate and Undertow feel a lot more like a perfect circle than Tool to me. But I would not necessarily say I don't like it. I don't know. It's hard for me. I haven't listened to it a lot.
Yeah, I like the live cuts a lot because it shows them like lean and mean and how tight they were as a unit.
Yeah.
But it's like lo-fi Tool. Like, it sounds so weird compared to the rest of the stuff, the pristine hi-fi of everything else. It's like kind of like it's just in a box. Like, everything is in one thing.
Yeah.
The Maynard banter in the beginning of those tracks is always great. We've systematically removed them like you would any roach or.
Yeah.
Like, of course, Maynard.
Yeah, I dig this. I dig
Throw
this
that
album.
Bob Marley motherfucker wanna be out of
Oh
here.
my god, yeah.
Oh my god. But yeah, I think like so this is just me like coming out of nowhere with this, but like the first EP feels more like, because it has like the live tracks and like like you're saying, it feels like a bit more like punky in the way like it's just, or like kind of like not punky but like more like SST, and like it fits with like Soundgarden of that era, and like even like a even like a weird like Sonic Youth record. It's more like a SST kind of thing because it's like more raw. You know what I mean? It has like the alternative. It's heavy.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I thought about it.
Yeah, I like looking into the band anyway, and like backstories and stuff. Like, yeah, because that's we'll get to I think the big turning point. But yeah, especially for these first 2 albums, they were definitely categorized more as alt rock than anything that you would consider like progressive, like trance metal. You know what I mean, or whatever you want to call it. Like, you know, it's, but yeah, this album, it's just not, it's not flushed out. I will say this though, you can still hear how, even in the early, incarnation of this band, and you know, like, and all that, like, it's still very bass forward. And that's something that the band never lost. Like, that's a thing that I think sets Tool aside from like a lot of other, not necessarily a lot of other bands, but like it's very bass centric in terms of like, this is the melody, or this is the, like, it decides songs.
You mean the bass guitar?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the rhythm section is like the key.
It felt Zeppelin-y at times.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? In that way,
in the
where
same way
it's
that,
a trio with the lead singer. Like,
yeah, the rhythm section is like super tight, and it's. And you're right. It's like leading the way, and melodically, and the guitar gets to kind of soar over and do all that stuff.
Yeah.
So worth checking out, but also it seems kind of like a demo, and like there's some
more
live
of that
stuff,
kind of
and
Although Opiate, everyone needs to listen to Opiate.
the last track,
Yeah, and they actually just released very recently, and end of last month.
Sorry.
A like Opiate Squared or something,
Right,
like
right,
a reimagining of Opiate,
Right.
and it's phenomenal.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's good. So moving on, we're gonna go chronologically, and at the end, we're gonna talk about our personal rankings of each of the 5 studio full length albums.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have a roundtable discussion chronologically through the discography. We'll highlight what it is in our order, and at the end, we'll recap our personal top 5. But moving on to the first full length, released in 1993, produced by Sylvia Massey, who produced the Opiate EP as well. This is Undertow, artwork by Adam Jones with the like red robotic rib cage looking thing. Yeah, let's go. Let's hit Luke, and then we'll come back around, I guess.
All right,
Keep it
so
easy.
let's start with the way I listened to these 2 albums at first. I listened to them in backwards order. So I listened to the last album
nice.
first, and then I worked back down.
Interesting.
Okay, so by the time I got to this record, I was like, I fucking love this record. This record's cool.
Yeah.
It's like it reminded me of like and I know this might not like connect to people, but like a lot of it sounded like Nirvana's first record, but like way more proficient, not as like sloppy and all over the place, but like even just like the way it like some of the riffs were.
Yeah.
And then as I got to like the song Bottom with Henry, I was like, Henry, this is Henry, and then it gave it more of like I understood the band more by the time I got down to the first record. I really like this record. It's like it just grooves a lot like those bands I just mentioned earlier, but it's like proggy, and it's got a lot of interesting movements in it, and I think like this record is grunge. It's not grungy, but it has like grungy overtones. So I really like that because I love grunge, like kind of that whole movement, and having like a proggy metal band with like grunge on top of it that's not like ironic grunge, like the corporate, that comes like 96, 97. This is like a really great album. It's really raw. The songwriting is interesting and fun. And then even what really got me like hooked is like, because I'm a Black Flag guy above like being, you know what I mean? So having Henry Rollins be on the album, it made me see too. I was like, oh, this is like where they're coming from. And they also like the same music I like, which made it a little easier. But I really enjoyed this record above everything else. I really liked Swamp Song on here as well.
Yeah. So why don't you give us the like maybe your top 3 and your bottom 3?
All right. I can't.
Or you don't have to go up to that, but
I'm not gonna go. I'm just gonna
like your top songs, your least favorite songs.
Prison. So I'm listening to Prison Sex, and I'm like, I really love this song. Like, what is this song called? And then like I look at it, I'm like, oh my god, this song's called Prison Sex. And then I'm just like, it made me like get into it in that way. Sober was probably my least favorite on here because it's the one I recognized. And I don't think it's a bad song. Why I didn't like it?
It's your money.
This is why
you're just like, this is a good song. It's a great song. But I don't feel like listening to this right now.
This is why I didn't like it, because I thought it was a good song, but when I heard it, in my head, I thought of like every other song that sounded like that wasn't as good, like the ripoffs that come later, and I was like, ugh. And that's for me why it just
It's one of the greatest bass lines ever written.
It's a great bass line.
And it's literally one fucking note. And you're just like, yep.
But yeah.
Keep it
so
simple, man.
I'm definitely gonna go Prison Sex was my favorite, and yeah, and Bottom. I loved that. That was cool.
What about you, Mike? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I love this album. So this challenge, I would imagine, was very challenging for Luke because, as we know, Luke enjoys like he's an all killer, no filler guy. Reduced down, like a nice 30 minute, but I was looking at this and I was like, damn, man, these albums are hefty.
The shortest
They're
album is
hefty
like
boys.
71 minutes. This is the shortest one.
It's an hour and 8 minutes.
Yes.
Dude. So you know what I mean? You got to know, like, for the uninitiated, if you're not into Tool, I think this is a good starting point. It is a good starting point, I think, for the novice Tool fan.
I didn't state album like that. All this one didn't bug me because it was like if it's proggy going in, that's what it is. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna fault the genre for what it is. You know what I mean? It's like that's more interesting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's where I draw.
So yeah, I would probably agree with Luke in the Prison Sex and Undertow, great tune. And I wrote Sober down as a song, like one of my favorite songs, because my thing with Sober is that, like, when I first bought a bass, I was like, what's something that I can play right from the rip? And you've owned a bass for 3 hours and you're fucking playing a Tool song. And it just feels good. It just feels, because you're like, fuck yeah, man. Like, fuck scales. I'm just going to play one fucking note for 7 minutes. And it's going to be the most badass shit ever. And it's dun-dun, dun-dun. But it's, it's one of those, it's just one of those songs that's like, there's a real sentimental value for me with Sober and a contribution to my life musically. The stuff that I found in terms of the songs that I guess I put on the bottom, no pun intended, is like, I've never been a big fan of like the Tool interludes.
Oh yeah, we'll get into that.
Where you have stuff like that, or you just have like the straight hot noise, or like I forget which the intertool. I forget which song it is on which album, but there's one song where it's literally like a slowed down track of Maynard James Keenan just slowly squeezing his cat.
Mantra.
And the noise that Mantra. Thank
Lateralis.
you. Yeah. So we'll get more into that. So
speaking
but still,
of noises,
I love this album.
And interludes. Does this album start with a bong rip? Isn't that?
No, I don't know.
It's because that's what it sounds like. It sounds like.
I think they do a lot of like breathing through tubes and stuff on their recording.
That might be what it is.
Yeah.
It does sound like a bong rip, though.
Yeah. Greg?
Yeah, Greg.
Through
what
a
are your
phaser.
thoughts?
So
A bong through a phaser. Yes. Welcome to Tool.
are we giving our ranking?
We'll do that at the end. We'll each say our thing and then we'll quick do our ranking.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So Undertow, I listened to Undertow later. I like I said, I started at Anima and kind of went forward from there. I never really went back. But once I found out Sober was on this album, that's when I went back to it. Still young, but I love Sober. I'm kind of unapologetically a fan of hits, like hit songs on records.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I like hits too, but continue.
If it's in, it's like the top 3, like the number 1 on Billboard, it's there for a reason.
Yeah,
it's really good songs. This album doesn't quite do it for me if I'm in the mood for Tool. Because this is before Justin Chancellor, and I feel like Justin Chancellor coming into the band is really what brought Tool into that Tool sound that we know.
Yeah.
And not to knock on the bass in this, it's phenomenal, but it doesn't have that. It's kind of hard to place what it is really.
Yeah.
But it's just this. I don't know. It's like he plays by feel. He doesn't play by what a bass is supposed to play, and that really kind of that's what draws me to the other albums over this one.
Yeah.
As for favorite tracks, it's the ones you would expect. Undertow, Sober. Sober's one of my favorite Tool tracks in general, but and then Flood I actually really liked. It's one of the longer songs on this album. And it really almost feels like 2 songs. It's like 4 or 5 minutes before it really there's any vocals, and but it just that's one of the most Toolish songs to me on this album because of that. It's building that mood, building the feeling.
Is that the one that starts with acoustic guitar too? One of them does. One of them later in the, I think that's Flood.
It's like this kind of.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm thinking about.
Also, people who are watching this don't know what we're listening to. We're listening to the song "Flood" right now to try to figure out if it was the.
Yeah, no, it's a real slow burn.
Yeah.
Kind of really, it's like horror movie soundtrack kind of stuff. And
Yeah, right.
being a horror fan, that's another reason I love Tool so much.
The song you're thinking about, Jeff, is 4 Degrees. It has like the almost Greek sounding guitar in the yeah.
Oh, I have such a bad memory too. Like
too.
once I get on the spot, I'm like, I don't even know who Tool is. So I apologize.
No, you're
I've
good, man.
I've never claimed to be the world's biggest Tool fan. Even amongst my friends, I'm not the biggest Tool fan that I know. But
That tune Undertow, that was also like a good standout.
Their title tracks usually are really.
Yeah.
yeah,
Cool.
I agree.
Did you say if you had a least favorite?
I don't have a least favorite on this
Okay.
on this album.
Cool. Yeah,
Oh, can I touch on that real quick?
Of course.
I didn't want to forget to say
please.
this. In my listening and like finding my favorite track, least favorite track, at first I was kind of going that route where like I was putting like those noise filler tracks almost, and then I was like, no, that's unfair because of the way Tool wants their music to be listened to.
Right.
And if I'm cherry picking songs and I'm like I'm never gonna pick that song to listen to on its own, but if you listen to it where it's supposed to be, it's a different thing. So I've left all of those out of my rankings.
Sure. Yeah, they're palate cleansers, they're intros, they're
the appetizer.
Or they I like when they like freak you out and then it like breaks and dissipates, or you're like, I can't stand 10 more seconds of this, and then it's like,
Yeah, it builds so much, and you're like, go ahead,
tension.
stop.
Yeah.
like it builds like tension like a horror movie.
Yeah.
So my thoughts on Undertow are kind of going to piggyback on points all three of you made. So I like this album, but it is such a different sound, a different band. I feel like when Paul D'Amour was in the band on bass, like the bass sound and the lines, they are iconic. They're really great. But Justin Chancellor entered the band, and then it was like there's 2 lead guitarists, but one just happened to be on an instrument that was pitched lower. Because there's times on later Tool albums you can't really tell, is this the bass doing it right now, or is this guitar? Because you'll hear a line and you're like, oh man, this guitar is great. But then you hear the guitar actually comes in and you're like, oh wait, that was all bass. So I feel like this album before Chancellor, it's like they're playing a lot of great songs, but they aren't like curating an experience like they would later, like setting a full environment and a mood to live in. This Luke mentioned Led Zeppelin. Like this band works like that so well. All the pieces all fit together. So like Swamp Song is one of my favorite songs on this because I think that's like one of their most Zeppelin-y sounding songs.
Yeah, like this has like the where the later ones, you're right, like have their own Tool sound. This has like that like early 90s hard like metal bands that were getting into Zeppelin again and getting like saying Sabbath is fucking cool and shit, you know? Like that's what it, you know, and it has those grooves in it like that.
Also, as a side note, the live cut of Sober, there's a live video you can find on YouTube, and it will literally raise the hair on the back of your neck.
I have to watch
because Maynard James Keenan is like the most haunting character in that whole. You're like, what?
That might have been like Woodstock
like
'94, maybe.
I think it was '94.
It was. And the fact that he can sing the way he sings and be, he looks like he's in pain, like just wrenched over. I watched a vocal coach analysis of that performance.
Oh, I think we watched the same video.
And it really put it into light, like what he does performing and still be able to sing the way he does. Yeah, that. It's
actually a really great video because she breaks it down of how the diaphragm works and how difficult it would be for him to even like be able to sing the way that he's singing because his posture is so like bad for singing.
So other tracks I like, I love Undertow, the title track, and Prison Sex. That's another favorite of mine. Most of the time I veer away, like Greg said, like I don't. The interludes, the transitions are one thing. I have to say my least favorite track on this album is the last track, which is a 13-minute
it's actually
soundscape,
15 minutes and 47 seconds long.
Disgustipated, which is like chanting the same line over and over for 2.5 minutes, and then this is what you hear for the next 12 minutes. Like it's like a sine wave cricket, like, and I just go, yeah, okay,
Could I say, as the record listener that falls asleep to sides all the time, I love when artists do that at the end. It goes bing, and you're like, "What just happened? Where am I?"
Yeah.
That's my least favorite track.
That song was actually on my list
Yeah.
as least favorite track when I made the decision to not do that. But yeah,
it's
trash.
Same here.
It's long enough that I felt like I have to treat it as a full song because it was.
It's terrible.
Long.
It's terrible.
Yeah,
but it makes sense though. It's like this, abstract sound collage thing.
It is a moment, however, that does bring the phrase into just because you can doesn't mean you should. You know what I mean?
But this is Tool
But
at
you
their,
respect it for what it is.
at their angriest, at their like most kind of like overtly like more political than philosophical. It's kind of like the biggest middle finger record of all theirs, I think. Young, hungry, and pissed off at the world, and but it's a very different band than they would become, I think, later.
I agree.
So let's hit it. Luke, why don't you start us off? Where is this on your out of 5? Where is this standing? I knew it because Luke's a punk rocker, man.
Yeah, it's more of my sensibility. It's not that
Number one. Huh?
Yeah, it's more of just
that.
like the way I'll groove to this because it's like more the overtly angry kind of stuff, and that's more what I like. Like I like straight up like aggression. Not more of like So anyway, this is definitely number one.
Mike, where is this for you?
It's a hard one because I do like it. I do like it for what it is, but I'm in agreement in the sense that it's like this is Tool. It's a band that I love. I love the music that they make. But this isn't like, it doesn't feel like my Tool. Do you know what I mean? Because I was like late to the party, so it was like it wasn't my Tool. So I'll probably throw this at. Being that it's the only album with the original bass player makes me want to rank it differently. But I think I'm gonna just go with 5.
Sure.
I think I'm just gonna go with 5 because it's like choosing between children at this point. So it's like you're like sorry, but you're number 5. Like I love you, but you're 5.
How about you, Greg?
Well, just to preface this, lower on the list is like, being the lowest person in the top of your class.
It's like getting a 91 on a test.
Right, right. Like you're still pretty baller. But Undertow for me is number 4.
Sure. Same. Undertow's 4 for me as well.
Yeah.
And this is it's number 4. It's an A- album still.
Right.
Like it's
right.
Yeah.
It's pretty unassailable. It's just in comparison to the other ones, it's number 4 for me too.
So moving on
to 1996. Now, Now they have a new bass player, Justin Chancellor, who's the youngest member of the band. He is from the British band Peach, who was a tour mate of Tool during their tour to support Undertow. Paul D'Amour left the band. According to the band, it's because he wanted to be a guitar player, which is possible. According to him, it's because their writing and composing and recording process is so laborious and I think that makes sense because Undertow is a bunch of songs, but it's not like let's make a fucking like black cloud in the sky. Like, so this is Justin Chancellor on bass now. This is new producer. This is David Bottrill producing, and Luke, why don't you hit us with your thoughts on Anima?
I like this record a lot. Man, okay, so I'm just gonna start off here with the heavy hitter. The last track, Third Eye, is one of my favorite things. Like out of all, I know that I ranked the last record number 1, but like the Third Eye was my favorite song I listened to, hands down, out of anything. I thought it was like artistically good. It finally because I listened to the albums in reverse order. This was where I was like, oh, Tool. Like I get like now the imagery made more sense.
Yeah.
Even like the aggressive, like, because like every song you hear about like your third eye is like some hippy dippy, like, you know, like kind of like bullshit most of the time. You know what I mean though?
Yeah,
It's done in a very different way. Like it's usually like you have like some sitar or whatever, and this is like talking about like consciousness and like, you know, all like the heavy aspects of life and all those topics in like the way that like is very interesting. It's like I'm gonna get really weird here, but like even like the Bhagavad Gita is written on a battlefield, right? And so that's a religious text on a battlefield, where this is like a talking about consciousness and your third eye in a heavy metal like
look, it's like you're like, look at it.
Yeah, and it's
You're
like
forcing someone to be introspective
Yeah,
in this weird, aggressive way.
yeah, and I like
in a good way though. I mean it in the best way, like, because I agree.
And I liked like how it was 14 minutes long. It took you on a trip. It like, and by the end of it, you're like, fuck, yes, that is awesome, and it like really brought you somewhere. That for me was like where I got Tool and I really started to enjoy it. The album opener was another track I thought was great. And was this the... Nope, that's not this. Oh, 46 and 2.
Yeah.
Like that.
Great song.
Yeah, man. Even like in the track before that, Useful Idiot, like it's like the noisy... This album worked for me on like a Tool level, like, and where I really understood it. And I think it was, I don't know, it was great. So
Do you have a least favorite song?
I'm gonna say the whole thing worked pretty well, and I didn't really think there was like a bummer on it. Like, if the music, like, I'm gonna be, you know, like I already said, like, it's not my favorite kind of stuff, but like for what it is, this is high class and greatly done. And then like, because I've never listened to this, it was like, oh, they are the high watermark of this era of this music. Like, you know, like. There's a lot more like bummers on Korn albums, you know what I mean? Like than like the, you know, this is
Put that on the back of the album. There's a lot more bummers on this one.
But what I'm saying, you know,
The critics are raving. There's
There's a lot more bummers.
There's a lot more.
but there's a lot.
than Korn.
You know what I mean? There's like but this is like.
But I know what you're saying. Yeah, because they kind of started spearheading that like alt rock new metal sound with progressive.
Yeah,
qualities, but more influenced by like the Pink Floyds, I feel like, rather than, you know what I'm trying to say, like.
Yeah, like what I was really saying is like this gets lumped in, like, just because it's like heavy, it gets lumped into like some bands that like aren't nearly as like on an artistic and intellectual level that they are, and having just like that be what it is, like, kept me away from maybe listening to something
well,
like
I think
this.
the thing that differentiates them from their peers at this era as well is you saw a lot of integration of like rap and hip hop in metal, where they didn't really do that thing. You know what I mean?
New metal.
Right, new metal, yeah, because this is the era of new metal though. This is the time when the early Limp Bizkits and the early Korns and like that whole movement started happening, and then it would end up splintering off, and you'd get metalcore later and all that kind of stuff. But
and I was pleasantly surprised seeing the year and release of this. I was like, oh, they didn't go that way. They made an original sound instead.
Yeah. They created a pretty distinct mood.
Yeah, I like this record was dope.
I love this record because it's so transitionary for me. Because it's just like, because that's the thing is when I was listening to Tool, I was trying to think of like what their influences could be, and I kept coming back to Pink Floyd, because Pink Floyd has, although it is a much larger, it was in other words, their sound was found over more albums than say Tool's was. Tool's, it was pretty much just like Undertow. What's his name? Paul Damore, right? Yeah, Paul Damore leaves. Justin Chancellor comes in, and this is where it's like something old, something new, and then Lateralis is like if they took this whole album and they just boiled it down and boiled it down and boiled it down and boiled it down and just give you like such a different thing. But yeah, I love this album. I fell victim to what Greg was saying as well, where like it is unfair to throw those sort of interludes and like like noise tracks in there, because man, I listen to the Yeses and the Pink Floyds and all that stuff, and progressive metal and rock 101, man, it's the entirety of the body of the work. That's the point of it, you know what I mean? So I did unfairly place some of those on my like thumbs down list, but But yeah, same thing. I mean, Stinkfist rather, as the opening track, it's so like, whoa, because the whole thing just has this sort of pulsating warble to it, and you're like, what the fuck is this? Like, and this was, I had Tool CDs in my car, and this was the one I played the most. And it's because that first
is that
fucking
down,
it's like because it's like dragging you through the mud at fucking 1 second. And
killer chorus too,
dude.
Like, the chorus is the killer. That's why for me.
Yeah. What is it? Intermission into Jimmy. It's like that. Like that sequence is just so fun because like intermission. This is like I think it's like the carnival-y.
So, yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Is that distorted kind of like
right? It goes into Jimmy.
It's like they
and
twist it. They twist it into this like gross sound, but it's the same sound.
Yeah,
that was a great moment for me in this record too, because they were like, look, it's this thing, and then they're like, but it's really this thing, and that's the artistry of it. Like you could do it like this, but also we could do it like
But this album, it is transitionary in the way where it feels like they're just about to get there. You know what I mean? Like it's on the precipice. And if you listen to the albums in the order, you see how this one fits into the story. And it's just, yeah, man. I love it. I love it. And it's still heavy emphasis on the bass, especially with Justin Chancellor as a bass player, because he's just a phenomenal bass player. So melodic but he does it so well in a way where it doesn't get lost in the sauce. You know what I mean? Like it's so distinct. So yeah, I love this album. Greg?
I agree, Mike. I
concur.
Like I said, this was my first Tool album that I listened to, and this is the one that scared me. It's the one that got me. I think this was one of the most shaping records of my childhood. It's what got me into horror. It's what got me into art, and it really does. It starts so well, and that's such a strength with Tool to me, is just nothing's there by accident. It's just like they started with Stinkfist because that's what needed to start that album, and it's why it's one of my favorite tracks off this album. I gotta flip my paper because I don't remember things. Also, this is obviously higher up on my list, so it gets into the... but yeah, Stinkfist, 46 and 2, always haunted me. And Anima, actually, the track Anima.
Yeah, the title track.
Yep. The lyrical content of that one, when you're an anxious little kid, definitely makes your mind go a little crazy.
Yeah.
But to me, the standout stuff was the weird stuff in this. Like, obviously, we know Tool, musically, they're incredible. But those, like, the Message to Harry Manback and...
yeah, right.
Yeah, just... Again,
it's like a Simpsons joke.
No, like not now as an adult, like looking into it, but the first time, like putting this CD in my little CD player and hearing that come on and be like, what is this? Like, why is this guy so mad?
I had so many moments of that as a child, of like music scaring the shit out of me and being like, what is this? But then you're like so excited by it.
And then the German track, the Die Ede von Satan.
Yeah.
And you listen to that, and it's so scary sounding. Then you find out as an adult, it's like a chocolate cake recipe or something like that.
And it's like because you have no reference point for it. It's just because it's forward.
And you're like 12, and you don't want your parents to hear it. And it's like,
could I ask you what like a 12-year-old Greg thought about hooker with a penis? Like, just because it's like were you like, I don't know? Because like a lot of stuff back then when I would listen to it and I had no idea, I would just be like, I don't even know what that means. And I would just like,
Yeah.
If I had to pick a least favorite song on this track, I don't have one, but it'd probably be that song. Yeah. It feels out of place. I didn't really know the name of the song when I was a kid and listened to it, but I did usually skip it. It just didn't hit the way I wanted that album to hit. It's not bad, but
it's not bad. I just like, because I was just like, looking at the song, I was like, oh, that's after the message to Harry man back, and then it's like the next song is,
I mean, this let's go back to the band is called Tool. All right, a lot of their iconography is like wrenches with bolts as testicles, and like this is their most satirical album, I think. The most like pointedly like Message to Harry Manback is a joke. The German track is a joke.
Right.
It's like it's simulating a Hitler rally, but it's just him reading a recipe of a cake.
Kinda,
yeah. And it's like like industrial
so
marching
intense
underneath
as a
it.
kid.
This band is like
Yeah.
I like to say Tool is like they're a bunch of enlightened dipshits, like they're or philosophizing douchebags. Like it's such a mix. Like the album title is Anima, which is a combination of anima, which is like a Jungian philosophy thing about the soul, and an enema. Like these guys are. This is their tooliest record. If I pick,
it's the highbrow, lowbrow mix.
Yeah,
that
fine line between clever and stupid.
But that's why
But they're in on it though.
Yeah.
this is why
they're absolutely in on it.
I enjoyed this one a lot because it was like you're like, oh, what? And
Now I realize like this was them. This is their gotcha album.
Yeah.
Like this is them being like, we know all you basement dwelling idiots that analyze every word that I say and every note that's played. And looking for some deeper meaning, and you guys are all just assholes.
Yeah. And Hooker with a Penis, that's what that song is about.
Yeah.
It's like you're calling us sellouts, but you're the fucking idiot who bought this record.
Yeah.
Like that's what the whole album is. Some of my favorite tracks, I love Eulogy, which starts with like those tinking can type of sounds and then just builds to this epic track. I love 46 and 2 and the closer Third Eye. This is the Justin Chancellor period, but it has to be said that Paul D'Amour, they had written half the album by the time he left the band. So the first 3 tracks, Anima itself and Push It, are all co-written by Paul D'Amour. So like he still had a big part in the making of this album. But this is just like Mike said, a transitionary step to like what was going to come. And this was the first one that I also was very deep into in college. This is like the one front to back that I would listen to the most out of all their stuff. I think it's because it's perfectly in between the like kind of brutal assault angriness of Undertow into the like kind of stretched out philosophizing, Lateralis stuff. But I still come back to this record, and if I would recommend Tool to a new listener who had never listened to them, I might say start with this record. Because it's as a jumping off point, it's pretty concise still. There aren't those overwhelming, like daunting, like 12-minute songs.
So what would be the first track you'd put on for them? A new, fresh-blooded Tool fan.
I mean, I'm an album guy. I say listen to the album as it was intended, and also the starter. The opener is so good because of that fake out little percussion, like pitched percussion thing, and it swaggers in and it captures so much what they're about. This album, it's still really, really, it's hitting. Yeah, 25 years later. Luke, where do you put this on your rankings?
I am going to go with this one at number. I'm going to go 3.
Okay.
I'll go 3.
I'm going to agree with Luke. I'm going to go for strong number 3. It's not the fully realized Tool quite yet, but I love a good transitionary album, and I think this is like one of the fucking best ones. So, hot 3
How
for
about you,
me.
Greg?
Number 2.
Number 2.
Number 2.
Nice.
This is number 3 for me. It's a strong 3 though. It's a 94 on the test.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man.
It's
Yeah.
I liked it a lot.
Yeah. All right. Do you want to take a quick break?
A quick commercial break.
We can take a quick commercial break. We've been going for
Sure.
50 minutes here, so
Yeah.
we'll take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll finish everything off. We'll be right back.
I have to clap using the Fibonacci sequence.
Welcome back, everybody. We hope you enjoyed our ads.
Do we have ads? Who
Yeah.
are our sponsors
There's
currently?
ads.
There's
there's
ads.
ads.
Yeah, there's
We
ads.
do the anchor ad.
We do that anchor ad, which I'd like to record.
You know who we need?
Re-record, rather.
You know who we need as a sponsor? 1012 Woodworks. Follow them on Instagram.
Yes,
I don't have any money
You don't have to.
to
Listen,
sponsor
you're good.
y'all.
we'll give you $10 to give back to us.
Cool.
The $12 we've made in the past 2 years, we'll give those.
That's a spotlight on Greg's woodworking,
Yes.
wood turning
Yes.
business.
No,
Instagram.
Thanks,
Excellent work.
Follow him on Instagram.
Yeah.
Also, why don't you shout out the hoodie you're wearing right
Oh
now?
yeah, this is our boy Devin, who was on our podcast a couple months ago. At this point,
Yeah, we
Devin
talked-
Arbuckle.
We talked
Devin
hip hop
Arbuckle.
albums with Devin.
yeah, I think it's Nice Boys is the name of the name
Look
of the
at
brand.
this.
Devin's
So,
a nice boy.
he's a nice boy.
If you'd like to see some of my work, go down to Prost Music and Beer Hall
Yeah,
in,
check it out.
in Jewett City. Replaced Altones,
Okay.
and
Yep.
I built that stage.
Oh, you
No
built
shit.
that stage
Yeah.
in there?
Nice.
Yeah.
This is a stage too. That's
you-
like 15 by 10 or something. How big is that? That's a big.
It's
That's a fucking big stage. It might be
20
longer than
24
Yeah.
by. It might be 30.
Yeah.
that. It's long.
Yeah, it's like 30 by 20, something
Yeah.
like that.
But you turn wood too, right? So like, do you? What do you? Because I've seen you made a bunch of different types of things, but like, do you have anything that's like for sale? Do you have like an Etsy page or anything like that?
I don't.
No. But if you want a piece, you can
Yeah, you can contact
you
my
directly.
via my Instagram 1012 Woodworks, the number 10, the number 12 Woodworks.
Woodworks. Yeah.
That at Gmail, if you need anything.
Yeah.
Lately, I've been just doing a lot of stuff for breweries and
Yeah.
stuff, building tables for Niantic Public House and Niantic, and
Nice.
yeah, I miss the turning though. I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. Turning is really cool, man. My old man's into it, and it's fucking it blows my mind.
Yeah, I've seen some of his stuff. He's good.
Huh? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's really good.
Yeah, man. He enjoys it. He loves doing it, So, but onward we go.
Deeper we go.
Deeper we go
Into the abyss.
into the madness. I think that the break was well placed because I was thinking about it because it's like I feel like this now. So just to bring you up to speed, the last album was Anima. That was 98. You said 6.
96. And now we
96.
fast forward 5 years later.
We fast forward 5 years later, and I think this is the album this is the Tool album in my mind. When I think of Tool, like the Tool that we know right now, this is like its inception, its creation, because you're getting a lot less of that sort of faster tempo, rock fueled progressive kind of thing that they had going on with Enema. This, like I said, is like it's boiled down and it's reduced and it's just given to you rather in just such a.
You can tell Mike loves this album because he completely jumped the format.
Did I? No,
Yes.
We're on Lateralis is the next one.
Yeah.
I know, but I'm supposed to be talking about it, homeboy.
Yeah.
We're supposed
Well,
to-
we were gonna go. Oh yeah. I'm sorry. I got lost in the.
This is Mike's
rightfully
Tool
so.
Moonshine.
Yeah.
Mike
sorry.
got lost in his own sauce.
I did get lost. Because I just love this album. I'm sorry. So
He's in the woods at his still,
Jeffrey.
distilling down Tool.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Pouring the songs in. A little parabola.
So I'll keep it short so that we can get back to Mike.
I'm sorry. My bad. I broke the cardinal rule.
So Lateralis, it's a great album. Is the first album. We'll start with artwork by Alex Gray, who's a visionary artist, who's like the visionary artist, which is psychedelic and all that kind of stuff.
Is he the same guy that does all those meme formats that you always send to the group chat? Where it's like when you you always send artwork like this.
Oh,
Yeah,
with like the
yeah.
4 panels.
Yeah, it's like
I think they do use him for that.
Yeah.
the artwork of like the expanding mind
Yeah, yeah.
people.
Is it Cold
Yeah.
Medicine or a Tool album?
Yeah. And this album, again, working with David Bottrill, who did Anima's production. I love this album. This is their. I mean, they had radio hits and stuff, but now it's like fully. They have some big hits. Schism, Parabola were very big songs. I'll keep it short and sweet. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. An experience. Listen to it front to back.
Yeah.
It's a using Mike's analogy, a distillation of all the best elements of Tool, I think. Some of my favorite tracks, The Grudge, which is the opener, like I thought it might not be one of my 3 favorite, but listening back over and over again, it's like it's still one of my favorite ones. Parabola with the ripping guitar. I love the guitar sound on Parabola, and I love the intro Parable, but two separate tracks. So giving the due to Parabola, and the title track Lateralis. Their title tracks are always really great to me.
I love that they always title track or they know.
I have no worse tracks because I like the cat noise track. Like I love all the interludes. I just this is it's philosophical, it's deep, it's spiritual, it's searching, it's angry, frustrated, it's shameful, it's all the great things I love about Tool. So that's my thoughts.
Yeah. Greg?
Lateralis is quintessential Tool. It's just like y'all said, where this is the culmination of the years of finding what they wanted to do. It's the first album where all of the current members were the only contributing forces into the album. So it really is this is what Tool wanted to do.
Yeah.
Not only the musical part of it, but also this is where we really first started getting Tool music videos and really seeing what they were trying to put out there. And I love that the music videos are designed by band members, by the people that created it, and because all the imagery was designed by Adam Jones, the costume work, the makeup work. If you've seen the Schism video, it's terrifying. It's beautiful. Those are contortionists that are just literally just doing their thing and just being weird Tool video things. So that album again, I'm following the trend that I have where those. I think I have the same top songs as you. The Grudge, Schism, and Parabola.
Oh, Schism I left off, but it was my 4.
Okay.
Because Schism is their...
It's their stairway to heaven.
It's the cliche song.
Free bird.
It's so good. It's so good.
And it breaks into that middle in the 2/3 in. And you're like, oh my gosh.
It really just... That song pulls in pretty much Tool to me into one song. It really is that rock, that prog, the weirdness, it's all of it in one. And
it's super cool that they made it into a pop song too. Like this is a big hit. You know what I mean?
I think
like,
it's their biggest song.
Tons of people know the song. So like to have it be so recognizable and have all those elements that are usually so uncommercial. Like it just shows like how talented they are. They were like, yeah, this is commercial. It's great.
Right. This song, that song, and this album should not have been popular. Like it's just so.
Absolutely, I agree.
It's so freaking weird.
Yeah.
And I actually put Parable and Parabola together. I know you separated them, but I feel like this album specifically really made me realize why Tool wanted to keep their stuff off of streaming. And kind of force people to listen to it in an album format as opposed to cherry picking what they want to listen to. Yeah. Because you would never know Parable exists. And you would not have that experience building into that song if you didn't just listen to the album. And
Yeah, it's constructed in that way, I think, where like like you said earlier, right, with like what you initially thought of as like maybe like least favorite tracks being like those noise, like there's nothing is out of place. Nothing is out of place. And maybe in terms of context, when you like, if you were to just like dip your hand into a bucket of Tool songs, there's a chance you could pull one up where you're like, what the fuck is this? Out of context. But in sequence, you're like, yep, no, that was on purpose. Like,
you pull out Disgustipated and they're never listening to Tool again.
Yeah, right, exactly. You know what
dog
I'm saying?
shit.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I hate it, but I still love it.
But yeah, I mean, I'll agree too. Schism was just one of those songs for me that, like, foundationally was like, oh, this is, you can make this? Like, this is a music you can make? Oh, no shit. Like, this is really, And I think there's just this quality.
Well, can I ask you? Can I interrupt you and ask you a
Yes,
question?
of course.
There seems to be some kind of Greek Mediterranean-y thing that's been like through lining these records a little bit.
Yeah.
Especially maybe like some of the tabla-y drums.
Yeah.
Did you like find some kind of connection with that? Like when you first started listening to Tool, because there is a lot of like Greek and that kind of thing.
I'll say like I so inevitably after you listen to so many like progressive, especially progressive metal bands and stuff like that,
Dispositions, that's the name of the song. It's kind of more of that flavor.
Yeah, right. I think it's cleverly done. It's like it's hard. You either have to like jump full in and be a band like Nile, where you're like literally just playing Egyptian metal, you know what I mean? Or you have to be clever about it, you know? And that's not the dog Nile. I fucking love Nile, but what I'm saying is that, I think the inclusion of those Eastern sounds in the music, like it's just done well. It doesn't feel corny. It doesn't feel like they're like putting you on anything weird. You know what I mean? Like, I think
it fits their reflection with the artwork well too, because it's like that kind of.
Ancient music.
Yeah, but it's not.
Yeah, right.
Like I like that you said like it's not like it's forced down your throat. It's just like a little like if you know what those instruments are, you would know. But if you didn't, it just sounds
right.
Cool,
Right. Yeah, 100%. And I don't want to go too long winded, but yeah, it's just for me. Is it my favorite Tool album? We'll discuss that later. But do I think it's the best Tool album? That I do think. I think this is their Dark Side. I think this is their fucking Zeppelin 4. I think this is their, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, this is that Tool album, you know, for me. But,
yeah.
So, yeah.
I think it's really well. It's like as much as it's like a great, like, and I know this doesn't really make much sense, but kind of like a pop metal album, as in it's like a great, like, Mike said, like, has all the greatness of like Dark Side of the Moon, but it doesn't compromise any of its artistic credibility to it.
Yeah.
Like I said, I liked like the tabla drums on like Disposition, because it just kind of slowed it down in another flavor that I enjoyed.
Yeah.
And I was like that works well too, and it's just like with the vocal style too of him like kind of on that like range, I enjoyed it. But I'm gonna go Greg on this one. I'm a hits. Give you the hits. Schism is the bass is so cool. It's like if you're a bass player and you're trying to show off a sound check, of course, like you just go for it.
Yeah.
Album opener is great, and it works really well. It's a great album. So are we gonna go down the rank here?
Yeah, my this is controversial. This is my number 2.
Oh.
Number 2.
Greg?
Wow.
But that's my personal preference.
Yeah.
Man,
Greg's about to fight me.
With knowing what's left.
Yeah.
I know what you picked, but Lateralis is number 1 for me.
Yep.
This, like I said, this is the Tool album.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's polished, it's beautiful, it's scary.
Yeah.
It's Tool.
Yeah, it's a perfect album if you ask me. But is it my number 1? I am, as I high five with Jeffrey earlier. It is not. It is my number 2. But I mean, for me in comparison to number 1. It's like, it's like a 99.98.
Right. Mine's
you know what I'm saying?
Mine's just
like,
a difference between the time of my life I maybe heard them, or the live-in experience, the connection to.
Yeah,
that what defines mine. How about you?
Sure.
Luke?
I'm 2. This would be 1 if I didn't have that kind of more leaning towards like just the way the first
Undertow,
album is produced. So, but yeah, this is great Tool. Too.
Yeah.
That's interesting that you go from Undertow number 1 and then Lateralis to number 2.
I just have like a thing for it's the way the first album is produced and like the time period it comes out of. I'm way just more into that style of music.
Yeah.
I just mean like the fact that, and again,
Right.
Luke's never listened to Tool, like, and so I'm really, really interested in his perspective on this, and to not like I really would have guessed if you told me Undertow was your favorite that you
Right.
would have your
Anima
list
would
would
be
be
2. Yeah.
chronological.
Yeah.
That's what it
Right.
would be. And the fact that it's not is
Because like
interesting.
when I'm like listening back and I'm like I can respect that this one's done in like the more I'm like looking at it like the album. This is a better album than I think the second one is. The second one's like maybe more fun for me, but like this one is just like it fits well as like a total package.
I think the first album for you, I think Undertow for you just checks all those sort of like those. It just checks those boxes.
Yeah, of like the
Of the
stuff
stuff that you
taste.
the taste boxes. Yeah.
Also, before we move on, this record, the last track on it, it's got like the noisy like ending.
With the UFO
Yeah.
phone call and stuff. Yeah.
Very
Do you want to take a whack at it?
very a la Sonic Youth,
Up Defiat.
which is what I also wanted to shout out.
Day Oed.
It reminded me of like Sonic Youth and like noise rock and like all of that, like the 5 minutes of just like
Yeah.
Which I think is like Inoculum for the voice of God or something.
Yeah.
So
is it?
Like, yeah. Again, this is Tool, all right? They make
So-
songs called Stinkfist, and then they make ancient languages about the voice of God.
But like I feel like I'm the only one listening to this, and I'm like, oh, but I could take out like you know what I
Yeah.
mean, the this, the that, and I loved it, so
Yeah.
it was cool.
All right. On.
So the fourth album, in 2006. Now they are self-producing their music after long. They always had legal battles and all that stuff with their record label. Self-produced, engineered, and mixed by Joe Barresi though, and this is called 10,000 Days. This came out. I forget what month it was, but it was like as I was leaving high school, entering college, and this is. I mean, Lateralis was such a high and such a, like Mike said, it's their Dark Side of the Moon. It is a very different record. This record, 10,000 Days, is a reference to Maynard's mom, who had an aneurysm when he was 11 and then spent the next 27 years of her life as a, I believe, quadriplegic in constant pain. So to 10,000 Days is roughly 27 years. There's a lot of songs that are referenced to his mom and her strong Christian beliefs and living through that pain and experience, and him watching her deteriorate in hospital and all those things. So it's a very different place musically. A handful of the tracks, but some of the tracks are classic Tool. Like when you think of The Pot, or you think of Zombie or Vicarious, those aren't necessarily having to do with his mother's health battles. This album, though, is there's a lot more of the quiet moments, I think, on this album. A lot of kind of, I don't know, piano, but like Danny Carey uses a lot of those mandala drums that have like, they're pitched. So there's some kind of like, makes it sound like almost like xylophone-y and stuff on different things.
You get that boom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, that's really good.
That was really good.
I'm a master impressionist.
He is a master impressionist. Some of my favorite tracks on this, Vicarious, the opener, like I said, their openers and their title tracks are always really great.
Right, yeah.
I love 10,000 Days, which is the Wings Part 2, which I think is like the centerpiece of this album. That's like the thematic place of this album. And I do like The Pot. The Pot that was like a radio song too on modern rock radio. But I just think it killer riffs. My least favorite song is Rosetta Stoned. And that's because like as I listened to these albums over and over again the past 2 weeks, every time I came back to Rosetta Stoned, I'm like, I love this song, but it's like almost like a parody of what someone thinks Tool is. Like, it sounded like if Weird Al made the best version of a Tool parody song. Like,
come on.
I love it though. But it's like, it's the first 2 minutes is this.
It's a Weird Al song.
I mean,
Rosetta Stone is a Weird Al song. You didn't know that?
Right up there with Gangsta's, was it Amish Paradise?
But it's like,
don't you know the greatest songs of all time?
You know what I mean?
Amish Paradise.
Like the fact that the first 2 minutes is like that hyper fast like encounter of a alien abduction and all this. Like, it was on the line of self-parody to me. The more I listened to it, maybe it was listening to too much in the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, you were lost in the sauce.
Yeah, my third eye might have gone crossed.
I need to find a reason why this sucks.
How does a single eye go cross-eyed?
And really, I think it was just like I'm picking nits, but I would listen to it and just be like, come on, Tool. I would just, I mean, I love it though. Like I said, I don't think there's any bad songs in their discography. I love this band so much. But yeah, maybe I was listening to it too many times. I'm just like, this is almost a Tool parody song.
Well, think about it this way. If you were listening to it chronologically over the past 14 days, and every time you listen to Tool, you did it chronologically, by the time you get to 10,000 Days and to Rosetta Stoned, you're already just like... You know, in a good way. In a
So
good
that's
way.
picking it.
That's not
so
talking shit.
That's like picking my least favorite track. Like Rosetta Stone, because of my thoughts on it being almost a self-parody, it might technically be my least favorite Tool song. But am I going to probably play it again in the next 2 weeks at some point? Yes, because I fucking love Tool and I love all their music. So
Yeah, right.
even the ridiculous kind of like Motormouth UFO abduction songs, like I'll still listen to those.
Yeah, everything still has its place. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that. No, it's, to be fair, I mean, the Weird Al thing was...
Listen to it next time and think this is Weird Al doing Tool, and you're like,
I
pretty
like, Jeffrey,
accurate.
that's so dramatic. But no, it's not a great song when you compare it to the disco. But yeah, it this album, it's too sad, which is weird to say about Tool.
Yeah.
It's almost like they forgot their satire. It's almost like they forgot that they are making music to make fun of music snobs, and they made music to make music, and it's it almost felt like Maynard had too much to say, and it kind of bummed me out. It kind of bums me out to listen to it, and that's not a bad thing. In fact, it could probably be a good thing within the scheme of it, because it's like it's so much of this like self-parody and self-awareness of how existential they are as a band, that like they're like, okay, yeah, we can make an album that has this substance. Like, here's some stuff that we wrote about that really matters to us. I do have favorite tracks. Again, it's kind of same as yours. We kind of, you know, The Pot, Vicarious, Zombie.
Yep.
Like they hit like Tool songs to me, and it is I guess ironic that they're the songs that are the least emo out of all of them. And I don't have a least favorite track. That Weird Al song at the end doesn't really.
Just eat it, eat it, eat it, eat it, eat it. Just eat it.
But yeah, there was just no real like. I put in my notes. It doesn't really have any Hot Money Fire bangers. Like, I did write that. Hot Money Fire bangers. I didn't want to forget to say that. But yeah. Oh, I also wrote this too. I like this. The album almost feels like stifled in tone. Like Maynard was holding back that Toolness because this almost is a eulogy. And he didn't want to make it that like real over the top. Aside from Rosetta Stone, he didn't really want to make it that over the top like ridiculousness of Tool. And yeah, for me, that's about it.
Yeah. I see. For me, man, it's like I like when I listen to this. I listen to it mainly on headphones, but there was definitely a moment where I got in the car that I own that has a working radio, and when I put 10,000 Days on, all of a sudden it's 2008. I'm in my 95 BMW 850. You know what I mean? It's the middle of the scorching hot summer. I'm just dipping my toe into let's just say, you know, mind expansion.
The pot,
if you will. And that's what it is for me with this record, is that there's so much it's very sentimental, but it's also so like sort of like heartbreakingly nostalgic. I was listening to this heavily when I was in like a really bad relationship too, and then like I was able to get out of that relationship, and this was like the soundtrack of that sort of relationship beginning to implode in on itself, and then me not being in that relationship anymore. So it was this record for me elicits such an intense emotional response, because I was going through such an intense moment in my life when I was listening to it, and it was like it's a heartbreaking album, but I found it to be quite healing, because it was just a healthy sort of outlet album to listen to just be like, I'm fucking sad too, man. Like, I'm so fucking sad, you know what I mean? And like, you listen to it and it like breaks your heart, because you're like, I'm so fucking sad, you know? Like, and with his mother, like, my father had passed away when I was 16, so it was like this whole like, what the fuck, like shit just turning and twisting. But at the end of it, listen back to it with such like love and reverence and all of that, because Maynard James Keenan has this thing where he can give you this like, he can be so incredibly intense, but like his gassed out is so like fragile. Like when he is just like, when like after you get the peak of the song or something like that, at the end, like, you know, I am just a worthless liar. I'm just, you know, this is a completely different album, I know, but I'm saying this, like, this sort of fragility to him is so compelling and so like, oh my, like the persona that he like embodies and creates within the context of Tool, that little creature exists inside of yourself, which is this like defeated sort of like keeled over, just like I can't take this anymore.
Like that, the Maynard in the Sober Out.
Right.
Video.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Like that iconic thing is like, oh no, I have that. Whatever that is, I have that too. I've created very unhealthy coping mechanisms not to bring him out, but he's in there. You know, he's in that really, really dark little room that's tucked away, like all the way in the back. That
the
like
golem inside
like we
your
don't
soul.
go there. You know, yeah. So, so yeah, this album that was a long-winded, you know, but 11 songs, an hour and 15 minutes.
I wonder where this
long.
one is for Mike.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite? You didn't mention any standout favorite tracks?
I mean, Vicarious, of course, because it's just like, again, it's that thing that Tool does best, which is it's a killer fucking opener song, man. And this is like, to me, the minute that this album kicks on, it's almost as if there's like a filter that drops in front of my eyes. Like almost because it's that it does this, you know, and they're like doing all these crazy, like rhythmically, like all these subdivisions, and they're playing in like 7/8, but it's subdivided into 3/2/2s, and like it's not just counts of set, you know. So it's like it hits all the music nerd receptors, but then that visceral fucking human pit of despair, it's like hello. So anyway, sorry, I'm done.
I am gonna disagree with Jeff. I think like Rosetta Stone in the pot. I feel like they should have went hard with this because it is. I feel like. And it's not like the whole stoner rock like thing, but like I feel like this album could have been like, it has like those like the pot, and it has those like moments where it is like the, you know, high pace, but then it also gets bogged down. I feel like songs like Intention, where it's like kind of like 7 minutes of, you know, and it doesn't really shift in the way it moves that much. So like things like that were more of a drag, where I really did like songs like Rosetta Stone, where it was like noisier and then good and heavy. The pot had great pop song, great chorus. Chalk it up to the songs about the devil's lettuce. You know, there's plenty of them out
Jazz
there.
cigarettes.
So, and like things like that, and I liked like the Wings and 10,000 Days. Like I liked that. I just could have used it like a little, like a little edit on it, like, you know.
If I have one criticism, that's the same. I have the same criticism. Where it's.
But yeah, so I'm a disagree. I liked where they went out and were like kind of like, you know, I like the different flavor of like of that song, and yeah, for me it's just it could have used a little more editing and like a little less slow songs. But yeah, so album opener great, and then, you know, the pot great, and you know,
Where would you rank it in your top 5?
Oh
No.
Well, yeah, right.
Breaking the format.
Jeffrey.
Oh, we're gonna go to okay.
Breaking the format. Jeffrey first.
Where does
sorry.
this one lie for you?
So a very different experience than Mike, because this came out when I was 18, and I straight up didn't listen to this album for 5 years.
Yeah.
This is my number 5.
Whoa.
And preliminary,
Whoa.
going into listening to all this stuff, I was like, this is my number 5 because it's the one I've listened to the least. Because the big charging, you know, the ones that are like, I've listened to those a lot, but the searching sad ones, I would skip over all the time.
That's where I'm at.
So
with
yeah,
it.
it's just my number 5, and maybe it'll move up because it is the one I've listened to the least. But number 5.
I'm with you. It's also my number 5, and I pre-ordered this CD. I got it when it came out with the special edition like artwork with the
hologram
the
eyes.
lenses.
Yeah.
And I listened to it once,
Yeah.
and then getting ready for this podcast was the next time I listened to it.
Wow, yeah.
And yeah, it's somber. It's beautiful. It's a trudge.
Yeah.
It's a like I was surprised. It was better than I remember. It was much more musically poignant than I remember it being, but it's still, compared to the other albums, it's the least good.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah, obviously it's number one. But again, it's just it's emotional for me with this record, you know, because it was like I said, it was a soundtrack.
Mike's a true cancer.
I am indeed. Yes, I am.
It was hard for me to say it was my fifth after your.
No, you're listen. This is how. Listen,
Mike's wiping his tears off on your shirt.
Yeah, that one blew.
You want to talk about Weird Al? This is the fucking Tool Weird Al album. Yeah. You know? No, but listen.
I just missed the boat on it. It came out in my prime, and
yeah.
I straight up, like Greg said, I listened to it 5 years later, and then I hadn't listened to it front to back until 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. For me, it's just like visiting this sort of like damaged old friend. You know what I mean?
Laying
I'm
a
sucker. I'm a romantic. I'm a nostalgic person. I'm a, you know what I mean? And also to a fault, sometimes I relive all of my fucking trauma. So I haven't kicked that one yet. But this one for me, again, it's just such a time and place for me.
Sure.
That it's this is an emotional based decision. Like I said,
Like all of Mike's decisions.
all my decisions. Lateralis is the greatest Tool album of all time. But
Who
this one
needs
is my
therapy
favorite.
when you have Tool?
That's what I'm saying, right? It's cheaper. You got 5 albums to really work through some dark shit. You can get there. We've all done it. So
Number 4.
number 4.
Yeah.
Number 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I also wanted to note, like, even compare the metal albums that were coming out during this time. If you listen back, this is definitely one of the high points. It's
Well, 2006.
that's
so
what I'm saying, because like 2006, like everything split at that point. It's,
I was listening heavy to like As I Lie Dying and Killswitch Engage, and
Yeah, this is
I
like-
was like Shadows Fall, In
Yeah,
Flames.
this was my metalcore era.
Yeah.
so like even this album is like
Thank you for the shadows. We always have a shadows fall shout out.
Hey
every
man,
episode.
about the war within.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying though. Like this is like the metal would shift again, and they were like still. It's a great record. Like musically, it's not bad at all. So
Yeah, right, and it is very different to what was happening at the time, especially in like super popular, like the metal scene, right? Because I mean, let's be real, Tool falls under the it's in the metal umbrella. Like you can't, you know what I mean? But they're metal, but they're not. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And this is the album that is in the especially in the metal world. I mean, well, metal I guess is different now because Black Sabbath still tours and stuff. But 10,000 Days came out, and
It's the Prince of fucking darkness.
and this was them. Some of the members nearing 47 years old.
Yeah.
So it's like a more mature record.
Yeah.
Fast forward 13 years. 13 years.
13 years.
To 2019, the fifth full length is called Fear Inoculum. Again, engineered and mixed by Evil Joe Barisi, and long-awaited album. I love Fear Inoculum. This came out, and it is there's some interlude tracks, but it's basically 7 gigantic opus tracks with I think 3 or 4 little interlude things in between them. This is Tool, like now they are nearing 60 years old. They're all between 48 and 59 or whatever years old when this album is made. And I think it's the best Danny Carey drum playing out of any of the records.
Shout out to Chocolate Chip Trip,
Yeah,
baby.
which is a 5-minute like drum solo, but it's like, to tell someone this is a drum solo, it's like a drum solo, but it sounds like he's playing 40 instruments because of all those electronic pads. I think the guitar sound on this record, it's some people argue that it's like clipped and like distorted and the volume's pushed too much through compressors and all that stuff. But there's just something about when the guitars kick into like 5th gear on this record, there's just a brightness and a cutting and like an edge and it like rips through the mix. I think it's the most, like, Justin Chandler's always been incredible player, but like sound wise, I think it's like the most beautifully textured sound. The choruses and flangers and phasers are like more watery than ever, more liquidy. I just feel like this is like, I don't know how long they actually spent making the record, but they had 13 years to ruminate on it and figure out what they wanted to do. And I just think it's like their most like epic, because all the songs are long scale. Everything is like fully like sometimes it's 4 minutes of build before vocals come in. And by sometimes I mean like on almost every track it's like that. And there's extended interlude breaks like in the middle of songs. There's a lot of like full feel changes. Like every song kind of feels like a 4 or 5 part song. This came out when Tool has always been described as a lysergic band. So this full transparency, this is like my acid album. Yeah. Like when I do acid trips, this is the album that I'll put on 5 times on repeat. Yeah. Like to center my psyche and my, you know, whatever, my being. So I just feel like this is like the clock with all the gears. This is for me, this locks in a way that like just hits like no other. I feel like it's like this is the most like religious experience, spiritual. Like even now I listen to these songs and I'm just like, I can feel where it's going. And it's like a boa constrictor slowly like slithering on the jungle floor. Like it's, and the fact that these guys sound this good and made this album when they're in their mid 50s is like astonishing to me. I love, some of my favorite tracks. I love Pneuma. I love Descending. Yeah. And I love Invincible. There's a maturity and there's this this album is kind of devoid of like the snarkiness and the, you know, the middle finger and stuff. But I still love it so much, and I have no worse tracks because
all right,
that was beautiful.
All right. Greg?
So, Fear Inoculum. I was really excited for this album when it was coming out. I almost felt like it was never going to come out. This album was kind of hard for me to rank. I feel like sheer number of hot money fire bangers.
Trademark.
This album's kind of lacking in that. But where it gains is the musicianship and the solid dynamic sound of this album. It's just so well played and so well constructed. Man, I don't know exactly what to say about that. I think that's my biggest problem with this is I don't know exactly what
you just
to
don't know
make
where
of
to
this
place
album.
it. Yeah.
See, that was kind of like my problem too when I'm like thinking about like this last record is like the other ones felt so almost like cohesive and like big statements where like the artwork even on this one is more ambiguous and it's more of like this, you know what I mean? And it's the record itself is kind of more like hard to place, especially in modern, because it like doesn't have anything to do with any of the current metal. It doesn't really. It has to do with Tool, you know what I mean? But having the gap so long, it almost makes it it's hard to place in like a time and place.
I agree with that, and then that's one of my things with it is it almost feels like they're like, okay, now we have to make a Tool album,
right?
You know, because they've all been doing their own thing, and now they're like, okay, it's been 13 years, like this needs to come out. How do we make a Tool album? To the point where like, Pneuma felt to me like a reused riff. It was, you know, and maybe it was intentional, but it was so on the nose Tool, like it was like basically Schism too, and that. It was like...
you know what? Okay, now that you're saying that song, you said Schism too, I know exactly what you're talking about because I referenced that point in my own head.
Yeah. And that kind of hammered in the point, like they're cosplaying Tool almost, it feels like to me. And it's a really good cosplay, like the best you'll ever see.
Right,
yeah, right.
They're like, okay, now let's turn on Tool Mind, let's make a weird freaking Tool album. And And that's hard to say for me because it's so well done. Like it won a Grammy. Like Tempest won a Grammy.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, but
Yeah, it's conflicting because you do like the songs, but for you they're just not hitting as well as like the other albums.
It's
the
so
cohesive difference.
Yeah, it's so good, but it's so textbook Tool that it almost loses some because of that.
Yeah,
that's fair.
When I came into this, I was thinking to myself, like, you know, especially when I listened to this, I'm like, oh, is this? And I made reference to him earlier too, but I remember, for example, when I listened to The Great Misdirect, that's a Between the Buried and Me album, and that was right after, I think that was the album right after Colors. And I remember sitting with a buddy listening to like the first single off of that, and he's like, yeah, this is Between the Buried and Me doing the Between the Buried and Me thing. Like I had a little bit of that sort of anxious feeling when I listened to this. Again, like it's a pretty much general consensus across the board. Nobody does Tool better than Tool. You know what I mean? And this is Tool doing Tool to the
they're
Tool's
almost
degree.
their own genre.
Yeah, right.
Because there's such a mix of
right. Right.
Yeah.
I think it's a necessary album. I will say that if I have a harshest criticism about it, is that the track Fear Inoculum is a great track. But it doesn't fit. I think the thing that's weird to me about it is it's like such a Tool album, but they didn't do the one Tooliest Tool thing, which was open the album with this fucking like trudging, you like grabbing you by the face and dragging you through the mud opening. It's much more just like, here's the mood.
I do love the way that song starts.
You know,
like,
yeah.
Whee! I can't do it because I'm sick, but like,
yeah, but I feel you though.
It
Yeah,
kicks in. It starts like, okay, this is how an
a
album
single
should start.
spotlight. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So it's just like it plays different, which is I think that's where it makes it hard for me to place it too, because I'm like, it's like the Tooliest Tool album, but there's like certain Tool things that Tool doesn't do, which I guess is good in a sense, right? To be like, oh, okay, well they didn't give exactly what you wanted or what you expected, right? Because it's like every fan of every band wants the same greatest album remade over and over again, but it either changes too much and you hate it, or it stays too much the same and you hate it. So what do? Like, you're kind of like stuck, you know? Like Opeth fell victim to that, where they just completely changed their sound, you know? And fortunately for them, it was well received. But the point being, yeah, this was a hard one for me to place too, man. It definitely was. It's a phenomenal album front to back, but yeah, it was just hard to put my finger on it. Maybe if you ask me in 10 years, I'll know where to put it better.
I think that's kind of the album.
Yeah,
it is.
Because that's how we do it with all these albums, right? You kind of think of a time and
Right.
place when you reference them, and we just, because it came out so recently, you don't have that. You don't have that time being like, oh yeah, the summer of 2021 was like, I went hard on that album. You know what I mean? And then 2030 happens, and you're like, oh yeah, Fear Inoculum, yeah.
This may be the last CD that was ever released too that people gave a rat's ass about owning. I remember when this came out as a record collector, like physical format guy. This CD was in stupid high demand. Nobody had a copy of it. People were charging hundreds of dollars for a CD.
Well, because they finally went to streaming
Yes.
like a month and a half before this came out.
Yeah.
It was a big to do, and I remember like the vinyl, all that stuff was very to do in the thing. But one of the last desirable CD releases.
It also came out at a weird time because there's no like, we kind of lost live music for a year and a half, 2 years.
Fall of 2019.
Yeah. And so this came out, and you kind of lose.
You know what? Like you saying that too. That's a phenomenal point, because if it came out in the fall of 2019, there was no Tool to back the album up. You didn't have like all this great promotion and background and image, you know what I mean, to go with it. And I feel like that's a point, man. That is, I didn't really realize that.
Yeah, because they're much like, well, I mean, we referenced them again, Pink Floyd, like a Tool show. It's like, again, everything's on purpose, man. Everything's in its place. There's a light show that accompanies it. There's projection that accompanies everything. Like everything. So it's made to be this sort of experience rather than I'm just going to go see Tool play a few songs. You know what I mean?
And all created by the band.
Right.
Very purposefully created.
Right. All that Alex Jones imagery. I'm sorry, Alex Gray. Jesus Christ.
Gay space frogs.
Yeah, sorry. No.
Well, the live stuff, it's almost all designed by Adam Jones. So you're right.
The
guitar
Adam
player.
Jones, the guitar player,
Adam,
does,
and
like, all
Alex
their live
and
shows.
Alex Gray.
Alex Gray. Right. Yeah.
That was a great mismatch.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Loved that.
But yeah, it's
Alex
just
Jones plus Alex Gray equals Alex Jones. Alex.
yeah.
I love this.
But yeah. Anyway.
Just
So Luke, what do you think?
chocolate chip Trip.
It's hard to say.
It is hard to say. It's a tongue twister.
It's hard to listen to sometimes too.
As a drummer, I loved it. The drums in this album are very drummy. They're very I'm gonna say it. It's the first time on the podcast. It's very math homework. You know what I mean? Like it's hard drumming. It's like that kind of stuff. I love the Eastern influence, the tabla, however you say it. I love that. What I thought was great, the best thing about this album as a Tool album was I think like the electronic-y interludes, and I wish maybe some of the I like that, and I wanted like a lean harder into like the electro, the sampling pad on Chocolate Chip Drip, like stuff was really really cool, and I think like that might be like a step forward. Like you said, Tempest, whatever, that song was like the fire for me on it. I liked it. And this is the only reason was I couldn't really like place it as a thing, and it felt like a little cold to me, but not in like a cold that it was bad, like an intentional coldness,
like an impenetrability.
Yes, like a white, like you're sitting in like a white room kind of thing, and like that's what I felt like this was. It was very like sterile-y, like planned out. The songs were not like a loose, we're gonna jam for a second. That's not happening here. It's like planned out, and and coldness is a feel on an album, and I feel like this one had a feeling of coldness to me. Maybe not other people, but that's and that's a vibe all in and of itself.
Like a fine, we'll give you some music.
What's up?
Like they're like fine, we'll give you some music.
No, not even in that. Like a purposeful cold. Like
okay.
Like you know what I mean? Like
surgical and like
yes, like that. Yeah. Like a hospital is like cold feeling. You know what I mean? Like the waiting room's uncomfortable and white and like that kind of thing.
Like sterile.
Yeah, like everything's planned the way it's supposed
to be. Because it has to be.
Yes, like
sterile because it has to be.
Yeah, and like you know what I mean. And it's I think that ends up working in the album's favor, and it's a fun thing to play with because it's interesting.
Yeah.
So.
Like it was a decision that was made for it to be that kind of an album.
I mean, that's how I felt like listening to it, and it was like cool and like cold and almost like computers are cold, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I that's what the vibe I got from it. Even like the artwork on it, where it wasn't like the human like. You know what I mean? You can see all the blood vessels and stuff. This one was like a cold.
So very zoomed in.
Yeah, like what
it felt very zoomed in.
Yeah, like what, you know what I mean? It could have been like a lot of things that image was. Mike just spiked the volume.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just trying to scroll up. I don't know how it synced up to the volume. Good God.
So Jeff, where'd you put it and why number one?
This is my number one. It's my number one because I love Tool, but there's such an immersive good like fatiguing feeling from listening to their music, and Fear Inoculum is the one album of theirs that I honestly can put on regardless of any mood I'm in, because it shape shifts and it builds to different things, but there aren't these like nothing stays pounding hard for more than 2.5 minutes. Nothing stays soothing quiet for more than 2.5 minutes. Like I just feel like the flow for me is just like I could put it on as background noise. I could put it on to like study and like really concentrate on the music. I love the maturity of it. And just the sound. Like for me, music is expressing emotions and thoughts through sounds. And for me, the sound of this record, it's just a step up. Like the way things sound on this record, the tones of the guitars, the way the vocals are recorded, just the mechanisms of the songwriting, how everything just interlocks like so perfectly. And I love the fact that for me, I was fully submerged and fully got this album on the first play, but I also feel like I won't fully understand it for 10 more years. Like,
yeah.
So yeah, it's my number one personal preference. So.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
So this album for me, dead center, number 3. Yep. But to note, this album is my go-to when I'm drawing. I full disclosure, I've been going to therapy for about 3 years, really kind of delving into what's going on. And one of the tools we use is drawing.
Sure.
And I really try to get into a state when I draw so that I'm really drawing what's inside and not what I think it should be. And this album's actually one of the albums I just put on and just go. This album, Lateralis, and a local band, When the Deadbolt Breaks, they have an album called Angels Are Weeping.
Okay.
And that's another one of mine. But it's mostly Tool, because it just kind of, like you said, it kind of puts me in this thing. But there's nothing in this album that's like will pull me out of that. And nothing that like pushes me like so deep into these like weird feelings that it's also skewing what I'm doing. So yeah, Dead Center, number 3, great album, solid album, but not quite breaking that top tier.
Yeah. Yeah, this is number 4 for me. I definitely think that the idea of what you might call sort of background music, there's like a negative sort of thing attached to that, and I think that's like really unfair, because I think the right background music, like in Greg's case, can really spark some creativity. You know what I mean? You want something that sets a mood, but like you said, like nothing that's gonna pull you out of it. You know what I mean? And yeah, I think that was really well put, because I agree this album is that kind of an album for me as well. It's a hefty boy, man. This is an hour and 26 minutes long too, so it's like you know, I mean, when you listen to the records in order, this last one is, you're like,
yeah, I said it's like if you're about to complete a marathon, you have 100 yards left, but then you put on this album and you're like, oh wait, there's 8 more miles.
Right, but it is a nice sort of thing. I mean, you made reference to, the psychedelic experience, and I find that, yeah, when you listen to all of these albums in this succession, it is very much sort of that way, like a psychedelic experience, because it's Jim Morrison saying, this is the best part of the trip, the part I really like, he's talking about the end, like when you feel like you've taken this sort of mental and spiritual dump, you know what I mean? Like, that's what this album is for me. It's like a, whoa, like, what was that? You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck just happened to me, when you listen to the whole thing. So yeah, my number 4.
This was number 5. It's mostly because I like more like hard, like emotion, aggression, that kind of thing. But again, I like the feeling of it. It's very cohesive. It's one statement. I like it. And yeah, and for me too, like the other aspect that, like we were talking about, like the gaps makes it like a little bit more disconnected. I'm also a guy that loves bands that release like month like every 6 months release stuff. And so like getting the gap is like a bit like you know what I mean, but I love that it does cohese, and I like that it does grow and move from their last record, because it doesn't really sound like the record before it. It's a different feel, and it still sounds like Tool. So it's a good record, and it's not a bad record. It's just the number 5 in the order. So
yeah.
We'll do a quick recap, and then we can final thoughts kind of thing. My number 1 was Fear Inoculum. My number 2, Lateralis. Number 3, Anima. Number 4, Undertow. Number 5, 10,000 Days.
My number 1, Lateralis. Number 2, Anima. Number 3 was Fear Inoculum. 4, Undertow. And finally, Lost Where I Am. 10,000 Days. Last one.
Number 1, 10,000 Days. 2, Lateralis. 3, Anima. 4, Fear Inoculum. And 5, Undertow.
I had number 1, Undertow. Number 2 was Lateralis. Number 3 was... How do you say it? Because I'm not going to...
Anima.
I knew I was going to mess that one up.
Everyone in the world has for the last 25. I did until like a year ago.
I was so glad. Well, I was like, somebody said it before I said it again. Like, I think I've said that on this podcast a bunch. But like, when you don't know how to pronounce like a song name, and you're like waiting for years for somebody to say it, you're like,
Jeff's our
that's how
go-to
you
guy,
say it.
though.
That's
Jeff's
how you say
always
it.
the guy who comes in and saves it for us, because he pronounces everything first, and we're like, oh, thank God, I had such bad anxiety because I don't know how to pronounce.
Don't worry,
this word.
I also quickly YouTube pronounce blank.
Did you find the Adam Jones video where the interviewer asked him how to pronounce it?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. And then I had Lateralis as number 3, or no, that was 2. Third was the one.
Anima.
There you go. Number 4, 10,000
There you
Days,
go.
and number 5, Fear Inoculum. It was really fun listening to Tool.
Yeah, as a first-ish timer.
Yeah, and like the thing was, like, I was having a hard time to like grasp like what I felt about it, like in like trying to like express it in in words, and having you guys like show how much you liked it and say why you liked it. It really like helped me to put it into words, and like because I'm like listening to it and I kept saying, I'm like, this is good. but like why can't I like get the grip on it, the feel on it, and you know, hanging out with other people and talking about it and like being a music lover, like Tool's never going to be my favorite band, but like I know Tool now and I like can reference Tool now and I get it in reference to other things now. And Tool's a great band and I really enjoyed listening to it, especially the first album. That was my shit all day. So yeah.
Nice.
Shout out to all you punk rockers. Listen to the first record and see if you like it and grow from there.
There's nothing. I mean, Tool. That's like really. That's what one word review. Tool. You know what I mean? Just a phenomenal band. They go dark when they have to go dark. They go fragile when they have to go fragile. They just it's only Tool can do Tool, man. You know, there's often imitated, never really replicated properly. You know, so fuck yeah, Tool. Greg?
Can't say much that hasn't been said.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree, Luke. This has been I was very, very intrigued to see what a non-Tool listener felt about it. Because I'm a begrudged Tool fan. I'm not happy that I'm a Tool fan. Because Tool fans kind of ruin it.
Yeah, that was it for me. It was like it was a Deadhead vibe. That was the thing for me.
Yeah, those guys that get so existential and so they dig so deep. And luckily Tool notices that, and they mock them within their music. And I think that's why I give them the love that I give them.
Yeah,
it's fun. Yeah, like I really wish the Grateful Dead would call their fans like losers for once. No, I'm joking.
Maggots, like Slipknot.
It's just like I wish, like like I love that there's the playfulness in that, and like that it's that whole vibe to it, and
Yeah, they cover every base. They are, it's like a super group. Like every guy in that band is just so incredible. They're the one band of my lifetime that I think is a genre unto themselves, and one of my favorite bands ever, and I love how varied they are and how much they give you to pour over. And like I was saying during the break, I can't wait for the next 40 years to actually like pay attention to lyrics. I don't even listen to the lyrics. Like sometimes I look them up and go, but I'm like at church when I listen to Tool. I just let it wash over me and I just feel it all and I just absorb what I can. And I'm a closet Tool fan. I won't go wearing the shirts and preaching to people, but I have the Tool Bible on my shelf. Like it's there because I love this band so much. I'm so happy we got to talk about Tool with you, Greg. We've been talking about wanting to do this for a long time.
Guys, so I got to fan out a little bit. I love Friends podcasts. I love projects that Friends do. And when I first found out about this, I was like, damn, I want to be on that show. But I didn't want to pull the friend card. I didn't want to like message Mike and be like, yo, dog, we know each other. You're going to let me be on your show. Yeah. I wanted it to organically happen. Sure. And then when Jeff joined the team, I was like, okay, like I'm friends with him too. Yeah. Like maybe this will happen. Yeah. And then when I got the message and I was like, oh my God, not only is it like, am I going to get to go on this podcast that I love? And I listen to almost every episode. That's not a lie.
Thank you. And, we appreciate it. Yeah.
Some of them I'm not interested in.
Yeah.
Like I don't care about the Elton John one. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, to get that invite to come and do this with you guys. I have a lot of respect for your knowledge of music. It's nuts. It was intimidating. That's why I came with typed notes because I'm like, shit, like these guys know a lot about stuff. But no, this is a wonderful thing you're doing. I really appreciate having you.
Yeah, man.
And we can't wait to have you on again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you pick a topic, and we'll go down a rabbit hole on something you want to.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, because that's the fun thing too is like getting to know somebody else's now I know Tool and like the rap episodes. I don't know any rap, but like now I have some kind of like flavor of rap that I like know about and can talk to people about, and I love that. So
I do feel like Mike's outnumbered in the metal world with you two.
Yep.
It's so bad. It's so bad, Greg.
Yeah.
It's so bad.
I bet, man.
I'm like flying this flag, but it is at half mast. At all times.
Mike will bring out his metal stuff, and then he gets shot down.
No matter what we're talking about, Mike will reference Opeth somehow.
Yeah. Oh, he does.
Somebody has to fly the flag for Opeth, baby.
And they're talking about Celine Dion. He'll bring up Opeth,
and then Luke's like,
that's just like the song
metal.
Harlequin Forest. Yeah.
But maybe I'll I don't know.
please.
We'll think of
Do a
something.
metalcore
Think of
deep
something.
dive, man. We can do like
The
CT
other side
hardcore,
of the
metalcore.
early 2000s. The
yeah.
Best of new metal.
yeah.
A Korn
the-
countdown.
I'm in.
The Shadows Fall and all that are around
That's what I'm saying.
See, I
because
'cause,
that was
like,
my bread and butter. Lamb of God, Shadows Fall, Kills Switch of Gaze.
it. Saw them at the LNG.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw the closest I got was All That Remains, because the lead singer All That Remains was the original lead singer for Shadows Fall before Brian replaced him. But
I think I saw Shadows Fall at Ozfest 2005.
did you?
Yeah.
I just know that he would always trip over his own dreadlocks. He'd always accidentally like step on his own
I
dreads.
don't know if you
That's
guys
the kind of
remember-
band I
you want to
avoid.
see something crazy? Is a man with 6 foot long dreadlocks windmilling. That's the
Yeah.
craziest thing
The,
you'll ever see in your life.
The coolest thing I can say about them is when I saw them at the LNG. This is before it was rebuilt and since died, rip in peace. But the stage was just the whole back wall, and the light for the stage was just a bulb with a string. And Brian Fair gets on stage, and he's doing his windmill thing with his 6 foot dreads, and it gets wrapped around that cord. And just starts turning on and off the light while they're rocking, and he rolled with it. You know, he started like moving it with the beat once he got it untangled from his dreads. But that was a cool experience to see. But yeah,
Thank
But
you.
yeah,
maybe
so-
we make something like that. But thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
guys.
man. Thank you for coming on. Real quick, tell the good people where to find you again. 1012.
1012 Woodworks.
1012
And that's
Woodworks.
1012.
Yes. As always, like, subscribe, comment.
Yeah.
Awaken the primordial algorithm to let the podcast lords know that we exist, and I'll hand it off to Luke for his poor
Oh,
mic
he's
etiquette.
taking the mic.
Poor etiquette. Poor
Oh.
mic etiquette closing.
Here we go.
This week we learned to keep an open mind. Love one another. Have a good week at school.
We'll see you next time.
Get in the garage.
Get in the garage.
This has been a presentation from the Wasted Robot Network. For more information and links to other shows, please visit www.wastedrobotrecords.com/podcasts.